Okay, the next thing that we're going to be doing is just bringing this model of a downforce racer into the CFD and just seeing what we can find out about its downforce and drag ratios and just see how it performs, because the idea is to get more downforce with this wing. One of the things that I did first initially is I made the wheels solid. If it's too complicated, it just will often crash depending on the type of computer that you've got. And so the first thing I did is make these wheels solid. Yeah, the other thing is you don't have to have the wheels on there with this as well. You could just test the wing angle and the sizes of different areas up the top. But anyway, let's start using it. So we're going to go to design and then down to simulation. Normally what will come up is a window here, and you just need to exit out of that window. And then we come up in simulation. We've got this this icon called simplify, and we're just going to select on that. And then we have tools. Now, if you've loaded CFD, it should come up in Fusion 360. If you haven't loaded CFD, this won't come up. So you've got to make sure you load the software first, then open up Fusion 360, and it should all be there. So I'm just going to down select and select simulate. And then as this opens up, I'm just going to pause different sections. Oh no, it came up pretty quick. So I'm going to call this, what am I going to call this, 10, because I've done a number of others, is the study name. And I'm just going to choose a folder where I've been putting them all into. And then I'm just going to launch that. And it'll take a little bit of time just to drop it in. So I'm just going to pause the video. Okay, great. So it's brought in my car, and the first thing that it's got over here is, here's my car, here's my design study bar, and here's all the different things that we're going to be using to create a computational fluid dynamics study on this. Now down here in the output bar, it says there was a couple of issues bringing it in. The edge merging tool may be useful in simplifying the model. It says the edges to be merged is 78. So on the merge tab in the geometry tool window, we're just going to say merge, and that's going to fix a few things. Then the small object removal tool. So I go here, and normally what will happen is it'll have the edges to be removed, and I can select on that and remove the edges. But in this case, it's the merge tools fixed all those. Next thing is to create the wind tunnel that this is going to be sitting in. And to do that, I'm going to be using this tab, Exit Volume. And here's all my offsets and so on and so forth here. But I'm just going to do this manually to start with. I'm going over to the View Cube and just pressing Front. Moving this over to the side a little bit more. And I'm going to sort of move the sides out a bit, like so. Just to give it a bit of space for my wind tunnel, and then I'm moving this up a reasonable amount for my wind tunnel. Then I can go to my side view, and I'm just scrolling forward, and I'm bringing this probably about this far forward, but this at the back, I'm bringing it right back to give it plenty of space for that to move into. Okay, so that looks about right. Now, whatever you're testing, every time you test, you've really got to make sure that this is exactly the same for all of them. So what I like to do is I like to round them off to the nearest number. So I'm going to say 26, maybe, well, not the nearest number, 8.5. The closest one here, I'm just going to go 30. So maybe not the nearest number, 80 for that one. And see how this one pans out. I'm just going to say 20, just because it makes it easy to enter in. So you just need to take a screenshot of this, and every time you do create a wind tunnel for this, the volume has to be exactly the same, so your results are the same. I'm just going to create that, and away I go, which is great. It's working away, and it should all be fine. Then what I'm going to do, I'm going to shut this down and just wait a couple of seconds, and we're still good. I'm now going to go up to the home button. Just going to scroll it down into a better position, I'm going to right click on the view cube and just set that to the home from now on. Over here on the side, we've got the materials. We've selected on the materials, so we're going to select that for the unassigned. So I'm just going to open up that. And the first thing that I have down here is the volume. And I'm going to just make that an outline first. So this is my wind tunnel that I just made. And I'm going to right click and I'm going to edit it. And I want that to be fluid and air, and I'm going to apply it. The next thing is I've got that is set, but all this stuff now is unassigned, which is the chassis and the bits and pieces. And I'm going to right click on the top and edit that. And I'm going to change that to solid and aluminium or ABS, whatever. It's going to be fine for that as long as it's a solid, and I'm just going to apply it. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to be doing is just going to be going to the boundary conditions, and I select, after I select that, I select on the front of the wind tunnel that I've just created, and as I select on it, it's got this tiny little icon here called edit. I'm going to be selecting on that, and I get to choose the velocity, because it's set to velocity up here, and that's meters per second. So I'm going to come down here, I'm going to set that to 10. I think the maximum that we got out of this was 2.5, so it was a bit less than 10. You might want to be generous and give it a 5, and then we're just going to apply that. Okay, I'm just going to rotate this now, and I'm just going to come around to the very back bit. I'm going to select on that. Now I want this, just scrolling up, I want this to be pressure with 0 pressure, and apply. This handy bit about selecting back on the home, so bring it back into position. And pretty much we're ready to go. I can create a mesh. Sometimes if this doesn't solve, you can go into some mesh settings, but let's just see how it goes. I'm just going to press solve, and boom, away I go. Okay, once it starts to process, you'll see we get this plot, and it's set out here from a start to an end of 100 iterations. And so it's running this algorithm, and it's looking for inconsistencies, and as it's simulating the air running over this, it's finding those inconsistencies and trying to fix them is what I best know about how this works. So after 5 iterations, it's all over the place, but what this should look like as it gets better and better are these lines become more straight, which means they have more consistency around the algorithm, that they're actually running the data correctly. That's only a very layman's term of what's happening here, but it's what I've read about it so far. But yeah, anyway, I'm just going to pause it and wait for it to finish this process up to 8 iterations, so it does take a while. So here we are, it's completed its analysis, as we can see down the bottom. And what we're going to be doing, as I said, it's completed its analysis, as we can see down the bottom. And now what we're going to be doing is we're going to create a plane. So I'm going to select a plane here, and I'm going to add that plane across the top, and we can actually see some really interesting colors coming off here, which actually have a relation here to the side. So if I sort of go to the right, you can actually see what's happening with the colors, meaning, you know, when it's slowing down, we can see, you know, the air slowing down here with the green. When it's almost stopped, it's there. The quickest it is up the top. But that's not the end of the analysis. We're going to rotate this plane, and to do that I'm going to select on it, and I'm going to say edit, and then what I'm going to do is come down here to the rotational axes, and in Z I'm going to put 1, and then I'm going to put 0 in Y, and that will allow me now just to rotate that 90 degrees. So now I'm going to just put that into 0 and then select up here. Then I'm going to move that all the way to the front, like so. And I'm now going to add some traces onto this. Just going to shut that down. And I'm going to go to the front view, and I'm just going to zoom in, just move it into position so I can put the traces in. Now, I'll show you what traces are in a minute, but if we select traces, we set the seed density to 2, you can maybe set 2.5, 2.5, see how that goes, and then go OK. We're coming down to the bottom here, and we're going to select. We're going to move our mouse across to about here, select, and then we're going to move up and we're going to select again. So there's all our traces. If I now go here to home view, you'll now see those traces, and you know, you now get a bit of a interesting view of what's happening when it's coming up and hitting that wing. What I'm also going to do, I'm going to select here, then right click, and then I can change it to the Z velocity, and it will bring up this one. This basically means there's no Z velocity, so it's just going perfectly in the Y. But then what's happening when it's hitting this wing here, you can see that it's getting some downforce when it does that. Another really cool thing that we can do is over here, I'm just going to hide this this plane that I've created over here, and I do that by just unselecting there, and that will just remove it. I can do this thing called animate and press play. Now you can see what happens and how it slows the various particles of wind as it comes over the top. Okay, I'm just going to pause that and stop it now. Let's see what else we can do. Well, we can also calculate what the downforce is. So what I'm going to do is I'm selecting on the wall calculator. I'm going to go back down here to the planes. I must have selected on the flow. Just had to find what I did. Instead of going down to planes and deselecting there, I went to parts and deselected the air. Just select that again. And then what we're going to do, I'll just show you again. We're going to go to wall calculator. Also, we're in results at the moment, okay? And we're going to then select here, we're going to choose everything to find out what the downforce is. We're going to select force and change that to newtons. And then we just need to select, well, it's almost like deselecting all these bits around the outside. And they should go blue once we've selected them. I was having some issues with this before. Okay, that seemed to work. It has to turn blue, so you just sort of have to move it into a position where it will actually turn blue. That one is turning blue, it's great. So it'll turn from that maroon colour to the blue. It's working now, great. And so that all needs to be that colour. And then what we do is just select calculate. And if we scroll down to the bottom, it is going to give us then what our Z Newton force is. So that's our downforce, and that's our total drag. And you can see it's got quite a lot of drag because of the tyres. See, tyres actually create a huge percentage of drag with the car, but then you can get your sort of, it's not a perfect, if you wanted to calculate, you know, just on the back wing, what its drag and downforce ratio is, you probably just want to test the car without the wheels, and it will give you a better number to make a comparison with. But you'll notice that with downforce creates drag. That's the end of this video. If you have any questions, obviously just ask me in class and we can chat more about it.